Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
I guess I'm doing okay. It's been kind of a rough week because, as you know, some major figures in the comic industry have kind of passed away, and it's not people that I personally know, but nevertheless, it still does affect you as things go.
Some of them important people.
Yep, and of course, I'm talking about
Jim Galton. What?
Wait, who?
Huh?
Who did you say?
James Galton.
Who in the flaming blue hootie is James Galton?
Well, who did you say? Because I was too busy listening to myself.
I was talking about Adam West.
I think I've heard of him.
Yeah, most people have. I think he's the mayor of somewhere, Quahog, Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he got a blowjob from the Happy Hooker, and the Happy Hooker goes Hollywood.
Yeah, and I believe he also has the cat gun.
And probably in one of the funniest TV shows of all time.
And, of course, we all know he is able to have sex with 8 women in one night.
Well, true. But Joe,
which is probably why you and I don't get much nowadays. Adam just kind of sucked up the whole pool.
Well, yeah, it was the 70s. Come on.
No. This was the 60s for him.
Oh.
Although he might be getting some bat poutine afterwards, Never Julie Newmar. As far as I know, nobody could conquer that,
Well, somebody did, because she's got a kid.
He was born in the most, a town that's just fun to say. And do you know what town that is, Corey?
I do not.
Walla Walla, Washington.
Oh, okay.
Say it with me.
Walla Walla, Washington.
Walla Walla, Walla Walla, Walla Walla. That could be simulated crowd noise.
Walla Walla.
But I'm more
Walla,
curious.
Walla, Walla,
almost everybody knows Adam West, but I don't think many people know the name you said.
James Galton.
Is heir to the Galton fortune?
No, but you can actually point to him.
Steve Ditko and Stan Lee?
You can actually point to him as being the most important person in comics after the Silver Age.
Explain how.
He was the president of Marvel Comics when they were with Candace Industries and then when they were with New World. Now, Jim Galton was mostly known for publishing. He was actually one of the editors at a book publisher when CBS bought them in the 60s. And they did not much care for the books he was choosing, so he was let go. And as I've talked about in the past, in the 60s, Marvel owner Martin Goodman sold the company to Candace Industries. And actually, if you go to the 70s Marvel magazines, many of them will say a Candace magazine. Some of them will say Marvel, but many of them also will say a Candace magazine.
Yeah. I do remember that. Or not so much magazine, but it says like Candace Industry.
Yes.
Because I was always curious who that was that owned Marvel. Especially when they got to the point where they actually sold Marvel. Because at the time they sold Marvel, and this is later on, Marvel was basically a money printing machine. And I just thought,
that's Jim Galton who did that. Because when he took over was in the mid-'70s when they were a money-losing machine.
Uh-oh.
And we've heard Jim Shooter take credit for turning Marvel around. We've heard Roy Thomas take credit for turning Marvel around. But the biggest name who turned it around was Jim Galton because he was Stan Lee's boss. When Stan in the 60s and into the early 70s was editor-in-chief, then when Goodman was booted, because his contract said that he would be in charge for a certain number of years, the minute that contract ended, he was gone, his kid was gone, they got rid of all of them. Stan was promoted to publisher, and really his job was to go out to Hollywood and try to sell the properties to TV and movies. Goodman sold the licensing to anybody who dropped by the office, including the international licensing, which is why when you look in those 60s comics, you've got like inflatable Thor pillows, and you look at it and go, what the hell? Or you've probably seen a lot of people post the Thor on a Vespa wind-up toy
Yes, I actually had one of those at one time.
But what Galton did is he brought the licensing in-house. And in doing that, he actually made money for Marvel because rather than, oh, yeah, just pay us and here's your licensing, he struck deals, especially when the Hulk TV show hit, where Marvel would get a piece of the action on everything that sold rather than a flat fee. He also was the one who pretty much set in place not just that Jim Shooter was editor-in-chief, but he was the one who said we're going to have more than just one editor. Because what Marvel was, there was an editor and then assistant editors who were basically proofreaders. He said, nope, we're going to have an editor-in-chief. Under the editor-in-chief, we will have editors. Under the editors, we will have assistant editors. Proofreading will be done differently. This will be done differently. If creators cannot get their work turned in on time, we will have fill-ins and stuff. We're not going to do reprints anymore. We will never miss a ship date. And he's the one who really pushed them to go whole hog into the direct market in the early 80s. One of the things that Jim Shooter said in a lot of interviews in the, I would say, 84, 85, 86 especially, he talked about how he would fight the people upstairs for the fans. Well, the people upstairs were Jim Galton, who had a lot more experience in publishing than Shooter, and was very much, he knew the numbers. This is what we do, this is what we sell, this is how we get into markets. He turned Marvel from kind of just this hangout publishing company in the early 70s to, I would say by the early 80s, a serious publishing concern. They were putting out books. He was the one behind Marvel Studios, where DePatsy and Fritz Freeling, who you probably know from Warner Brothers, and then DePatsy and Freeling were the ones who did the Pink Panther stuff. He's the one who came in and bought that studio when it was starting to fail, and that's where you get Muppet Babies and Dungeons and Dragons and G.I. Joe, etc., etc., etc. And he got out right as Marvel went public. Passed away last week. It's funny how if you were on Facebook, you wouldn't have really known it except for some of the... Paul Levitz wrote about it. Some of the older Marvel editors wrote about it. All of them talked about... Jim Shooter's taken credit for he's the one who got royalties. And the editors and Levitz himself said, no, it was Jim Galton who said, well, why don't we start paying people royalties to get them to stay on books longer? Because I've noticed that when a creator stays on a book longer, it sells better over time, rather than them jumping assignment to assignment to assignment, jumping back and forth between company versus company. He came in right after the whole Atlas thing where Goodman started a company called Atlas Seaboard, where he pretty much told people he would pay them double Marvel's page rate. And then within, about 3-4 months, the company was gone. So there's your, what are you watching?
My wife is watching West Wing in the other room.
Ah, okay. But Joe, you wanted to talk a little about...
her from yelling in the room at me, so...
Well, that's okay if she yells in. She's sometimes more entertaining than either one of us.
Yeah, and a lot cuter, I'll tell you that.
Well, that's not hard. I have a pile of clothes I'm giving away to Goodwill that are cuter than me.
Please clap.
Jeb Bush has a job.
Thank God. I'm a little worried about it.
But you wanted to talk Adam West. Adam West, who was on the funniest TV show ever made, Joe.
Yeah, Family Guy.
Look Well.
Look Well. Oh, I thought you were talking. Actually, the first time I recall Adam West is obviously reruns of the Batman TV show in the 70s, which as a kid I absolutely loved. Did you get a chance? I mean, who hasn't seen these things?
I loved it, then I hated it, then I loved it.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way, because it was, as a kid, it was great. I mean, Batman was cool. The car is an icon. I mean, I just absolutely love it. And, of course, Oh, you can't say enough about Julie Newmar. But we're not talking about her. We're talking about Adam. And he was pretty sweet as Batman. I mean, he was... What I found interesting, and this is because my wife and I watched a couple of the episodes when he passed away, it was almost like him and Robin were always befuddled by the villains the entire show, and then somehow he's able to fool them because he does something unknown to trap them. A good example would be, let's take a look here. Corey, how many parts were, not counting season 3, how many parts were Batman episodes?
They were usually a 2-parter, but I think there was a couple 3-parters, weren't there?
Yeah, and that was the one that we stumbled on because my wife and I wanted to watch a Joker one. She wanted to watch a Penguin one. And we happened upon the Zodiac Crimes where Joker and Penguin actually team up. And it was an unusual one because it was 3 parts. And I don't recall seeing this one ever. So for me, it was kind of cool. But what happens towards the end, and if you're worried about spoilers, from a 1967 TV show that after, the 3 episodes go, the bad guys all sneak into the trunk of the Batmobile as Batman's coming back into the Batcave. And, of course, the big thing as you're talking, let's see, it's Joker, Penguin, and 4 goons. Because usually there were 2 seen, and then when the fight scenes show, 2 goons magically appear. And somehow they all fit in there, and they surprise Batman by jumping out, and now we have the Batcave. And he says, no, you didn't, because I knew you were there, and we wanted you in so we could fight. And, of course, the fight comes, and they kick the bad guys. And Robin asks him, how do you know they weren't going to peek out? Simple, Robin. Once I knew they were there, I locked the bat trunk. See the Batcave, they still have no idea where they were. Penguin's like, how come you didn't look out? Yeah, you idiot. Yeah. So, but it was always like that. We watched another episode. I actually kind of referred to it last podcast. It was the one that Bill Finger actually wrote, the 2-parter with the Clock King. First one was Crazy Crimes, and then the Clock King Gets Crowned. Good for alliterations there. So, and it was kind of a similar thing. Batman pulls off a fast one that we didn't know about. Otherwise, they'd have been royally boned. That one, of course, was known most because him and Robin are put into an hourglass as Clock King walks away, and they were able to, first of all, get it on its side, and then, of course, roll it down the street towards a truck. And once they hit the truck, well, that shattered everything. They were able to escape. So, and then, of course, season 3 had Batgirl in it.
Yes.
But, yeah, I mean, as a kid, I loved it. As, I remember when the Tim Burton Batman was coming out and Adam West was lobbying to be Batman, and I was like, I'm sorry, Adam, time's up.
Well, and then he started pitching a Batman story that was a version of Dark Knight Returns. And you'd read interviews with him. Well, I've got this story where Batman's turned 50 and he can't find a thrill anywhere. And it was, okay, you read Dark Knight Returns and you think it'd be a great movie for you. Fine. But I think with him, it's the same thing with Shatner, because they both had kind of a similar career path. After their iconic TV show ended, they couldn't get work anywhere. They would get, bit parts. And
do you think typecasting is prevalent today? Because, I mean, in the 60s, we could just name off everybody who was typecast. And, some of them, fortunately, were able to turn that around and actually get a career like 10, 20 years later. But do you think there's people nowadays that are typecast?
Oh, yeah.
They're so iconic that we just can't see them in anything else?
I think, the guy who played George, Jason Alexander, on Seinfeld. Anytime he shows up anywhere, if he's not playing a version of George, it doesn't work. Kevin James tried a movie career. It went okay, but now he's back on TV not just playing a very similar character, but they got rid of his wife from season 1, and they're bringing back his wife from the previous TV show he did. I think there are a lot of people, especially TV people. The guy who played Chandler on Friends. Mm. You know, he was on The Odd Couple, and it kind of sputtered and died. I think a lot of people get stuck in that.
Saw him briefly in West Wing.
Yep.
I remember, the first one you said from Friends. Jason
Alexander from Seinfeld, yeah.
He showed up in Star Trek, and he was under a lot of makeup, but you could still hear his delivery. I think that's why it's fun to see a lot of these guys show up in maybe some science fiction where they're not as judgmental. I think that's something fun in Family Guy, too, where they're willing to have a lot of these guys that they really like come in not only for a paycheck, but because they can meet them. And I think that's how he was able to, I'm laughing just thinking of it. You know, he did the Mayor Adam West, which he had his own theme song. We should probably look that up and play it in the background while we're talking about him.
One of the things that Adam West talked about was the same thing Shatner talked about is once they decided they were going to quit fighting it and just lean into it, that's when things changed, especially when Adam West talked about a lot where he would go in for things and people would go, hey, it's Adam West. I watched you all the time when I was a kid. And he would get jobs that way.
Cool.
It's kind of like what Stan Lee did. You know, he went out to Hollywood and nobody paid any attention to him. But he, did the voiceovers on Hulk and the other Marvel cartoons until all the kids who watch that stuff, he would go and have a meeting. And they just wanted a meeting because they wanted to meet Stan Lee. And that opened doors for him.
Well, you would have thought when Adam West went down to United States Wrestling Association and engaged in a war of words with Jerry the King Lawler, that would have been the defining moment that would have broke him out of that Batman role. Of course, he appeared as Batman. But
that was a problem.
Yeah, maybe, and he didn't name-drop Spider-Man, but that didn't help. I will say, though, a lot of times typecasting really kind of makes me sad, because I did catch a pre-Batman Outer Limits, where he did a show called The Invisible Enemy that scared the bejesus out of me as a kid. You know, and I recognized him mostly from his voice, because he was really young. And this was the one that had the sand shark in it, which when you see stills of it, it looks pretty goofy, but when you see it moving, it was actually pretty scary for a 60s TV show. And you just wonder what we missed out on. It's too bad they just couldn't find other roles. I mean, I do see, and the same thing with William Shatner. You see the roles he did. I mean, you're looking on Wikipedia, and you talked about The Happy Hooker Goes to Hollywood in the 80s. He did Marriage of a Stockbroker, Curse of the Moonchild, Specialist, Hooper. Sometimes he appeared as himself. One Dark Night, Young Lady Chatlery 2.
Yeah, those early Skinamax movies.
And then, of course, the best part about 70s TV show is looking for the guest shots. Alice, Policewoman, Emergency, Operation Petticoat. If anybody remembers that one.
Oh, I do.
American Style. Big Seamus, Little Laverne and Shirley, Bewitched. I mean, it makes me want to, well, of course, Love Boat and Fantasy Island. It makes me want to go out, and I wish I could look up just by episodes, Okay, show me the episode that Adam West was in on Emergency. Because I loved Emergency, and I don't remember it.
Well, I know that MeTV on Sunday went through and did a bunch of TV shows that Adam West was on.
Oh, that would have been fun.
But I think he said that things changed for him with Lookwell, which I've mentioned a few times. Lookwell was a pilot that was written by Conan O'Brien and Robert Smigel that didn't get picked up. But it's out on YouTube. It's been all over the place. He plays a guy who was a TV detective in the 70s for 2 or 3 seasons and was given an honorary badge by the police. And he's still trying to get acting jobs. This was in the 90s. But he thought that the honorary badge he was given as a publicity stunt actually made it to where he was a police consultant. So he would get involved in crimes. And he talked about it turned it around because it was the first time he went in. They actually called him, and they said, "We want you because you were Batman."
Well, that's cool.
And after that, he realized, hey, there are all these people making shows and movies and stuff who grew up with me, who don't think of me being Batman as a bad thing. But I think also with comic fans, Joe, you remember when the Batman movie was announced and they said, it's going to be Tim Burton and Michael Keaton. What did people say?
Oh, my God, Mr. Mom?
Mr. Mom and the guy who directed the Pee-wee movies. It's going to be just like the TV show. It's going to be campy, and it's going to make fun of our funny books.
Dr. Demento had a thing out where somebody did a spoof to Wild Wild West. You know, will their big budget Batbuster be a Bat Bomb? Well, Bat fans hate that Batman is also Mr. Mom. Tune in tomorrow to learn the rest. And, of course, the theme was, I'll be watching Batman starring Adam West. Adam West. I actually saw a copy of that at a local comic store. I think Butch actually bought it. And, of course, you can go to the YouTubes and look it up.
But it was
sometime... And they were wrong. It was fine.
It was sometime in the early 90s when comic fans finally came to terms with the Batman TV show. And now you don't hear a lot of people saying, oh, that Batman TV show ruined everything. But, man, back in the 80s, you could not admit, if you were a comic book fan, you couldn't admit you liked the Batman TV show. It was the worst goddamn thing that ever happened. And I got, swept up in that until my son became Batman obsessed, because I think all children now are just born knowing who Batman is.
That's funny, because one of the guys at work was like, oh, my daughter wants to go out as Halloween as Batman. I was laughing. I said, that's brilliant.
But he wanted it, he watched the first movie over and over and over. That was how I got a little piece of goddamn quiet.
I know, and for a while that was the only thing available. We talked on previous podcasts. As a matter of fact, I think when the podcast started, Batman, the TV show, was not available on DVD.
No, and it was only running on only running on like a few UHF channels around, but then a Batman movie would come out and they'd pick it up for cable for a few months.
Yeah, Nickelodeon would pick it up and run it. And now it's available.
Yep.
I think it was the last big DVD box set that I bought.
And I think it was the last big DVD box set that's left. I can't think of any other TV series where people are clamoring for it and it's not out yet.
Yeah, they are re-releasing it. Rhino does a lot of this, and they're really good with it. They just re-released a Monkeys box set, which is available, but this one includes everything. Their 33 1/3 special that they did after the TV show was done, the movie Head, some of their appearances. So they'll repackage things, but the actual series had been out previous, which I bought, and it was kind of neat because you'd open it up and it was like a phonograph record, but it was a pop-up, and of course my daughters destroyed it because they wanted to get to the Monkeys tape. At least we watched it. We have it. It's kind of fun. And, so I see that sometimes, usually if they come out with something, it's like, okay, this is now the definitive collection. I don't think there's much left.
Yeah. And I think it's really good that comic fans have embraced it. I've talked in the past about how everybody was like, oh, it's so campy and terrible. But if you go back and read the Batman comics before the TV show, especially the ones in the 50s, they were a lot worse.
What was the movie that came out? It was an animated movie. Is it out yet? That Adam West?
No, it's not out yet. It's an animated movie with Adam West, and William Shatner plays Two-Face.
And we got something to look forward to still.
And the Batman 66 TV show comic, yes, I think was excellent in just capturing that mood and showing why the show was so loved. And I dare you to read that comic and not hear Adam West's voice in your head.
Well, it's like his little brief stint he did on Big Bang Theory, where he was there as Adam West, and they're all four in a car talking about Batman, and they go, "How can you not like Bale? I'm Batman." And Adam West's like, I didn't have to say I'm Batman. I showed up and they knew who I was. I guess I'm paraphrasing it, but you can, it's floating around the Facebooks and the interwebs, but it's just hilarious, his whole take on it. And by the end, the guys are like, yeah, pretty cool.
And he was 88, passed away of leukemia. He kept it secret till he passed, but he was only sick with it for a short time, from what I read.
So the question I have, Corey, out of the Batman TV show, what would be your either favorite episode or just your favorite moment that you loved?
I can't pick a favorite moment, but I will say, anytime Frank Gorshin was on the screen, it was the most entertaining thing on television. Frank Gorshin is one of these guys. It's a shame that he didn't work more, because everything I've seen him in, he was amazing, and most people don't know. Joe, when he wasn't a TV actor, what was Frank Gorshin's main source of income?
I thought he was a stand-up comedian, wasn't he?
He was a stand-up comedian, and his comedy was all impressions. He was an impressionist.
To the YouTubes.
And it's kind of shocking that he didn't get used more. He showed up a lot on TV, and he was in a lot of game shows and stuff. But if I were making TV in the 70s, I would have grabbed him because he could do anything. I've seen stuff where he plays serious, and especially like if he's playing a gangster or a heavy, he's a scary-ass motherfucker.
Well, I remember him on Star Trek, and I'm trying to think of the name.
Yes, that was To Your Final Battlegrounds Go, which is one of the... It was the most ham-fisted analogy. Oh, yes.
Let that be your last battlefield. And I also I remember I ran into him at the San Diego Comic-Con that you and I did, and he was in the...
Really?
I don't know what you'd call it. It was just a row of people that were just signing autographs. And I think I was towards the end, and I was like, well, I have money to burn. Let's see who I get. I remember I got the guy who he played Klingon officer on the... Hang on a second here.
Let me whip this out.
He played a Klingon officer on a Star Trek ship, the one that Riker went to. And he was the first officer, and he became his friend. He was also the bounty hunter on X-Files. And I had him sign a little thing to Chris under the bounty hunter. And I told him, I said, your character was fabulous in Star Trek. I don't know why they don't bring it back. And like most memorable characters, he was baffled too. He's like, it's just the way the job is. You wait. But Frank was there. I was able to catch him right before he left. And I said, I was a kid when I first saw this. That episode of Star Trek not only confused the hell out of me because I didn't understand racism, but it scared the crap out of me too. The fact that you two were just so intense on fighting each other. You went down to the planet and died. And it was fun just to talk with him a little bit. I know I sold the autograph I got from him years ago, but everybody wanted the Riddler, and I was more no, Star Trek. You had me for that one. Of course, you might not have been a John Austen fan for Riddler.
I thought he was good as the Riddler. I didn't mind that he did it. And the story I heard is that Frank Gorshin was wanting more money, so they said, "No, we could get John Austen for cheap."
Another guy who's been typecast. I wonder why.
Although one of my favorite roles for John Austen was his Harry's dad on Night Court.
Oh yes, he was wonderful. And how could you forget him in Attack of the Killer Tomatoes 2? I'm sorry, I went too far with that one.
Yes, you did.
Yes, I did. I think for me, with Batman, it was always watching the episodes, hoping for Batgirl, because I loved Batgirl. And, of course, the only reason...
Well, who didn't?
Well, the big thing for me, of course, it was, 5 days a week they're doing reruns, and if I happened to catch part 1 on Friday, I'd inevitably forget to watch part 2 on Monday. But when they got to the Batgirl ones, they were all one-parters anyways. which was fun to watch. And, of course, she was fun to watch, too. And, of course, I read Back to the Batcave with Adam West. And if you haven't, it's worth picking up. If you go, you can still go to adamwest.com. He's got a ton of things, including prints he did of artwork that he had done. There's no signed stuff. Most of that's gone. But he does have a couple DVDs, which I'd be curious to pick up, starring Adam West and Adam West naked. Ooh, oh my.
You were talking about watching...
I think that Adam West Naked was the one you talked about earlier. I mean, we're talking way early, where he talks episode by episode, recounting his personal memories, talking about making the series. So that one might be fun to pick up just as a companion piece to the big old Bat book I bought.
Yeah, he and I think Burt Ward did commentary for every episode.
Which was really kind of disappointing because they didn't include that with the book or the series. Or
they could have had him sit down with other people. I really get irritated, especially on older series that have huge fan bases, when they don't do commentary. It's like, you're missing out here, because this is rerun all the time, and yes, people are going to buy it without it, but just think of how cool it will be when it's there.
Did you ever see, was it The Late Show on Fox where they had the big Batman reunion? And everybody was there that was alive, with the exception of, I believe, the actor who played the commissioner, and what was the right-hand man cop's name?
O'Houlihan.
O'Houlihan. I'm afraid this is too much for us. We must call Batman.
I did not see that, but I did watch the TV movie Back to the Batcave.
I have that. I have not watched it yet.
It's okay.
So I will. Well, yeah, I know. I kind of figured that when I bought it. So, the question, though, true or false? Did they include Aunt Harriet in the TV show to get rid of the illusions that Bruce and might be gay with his ward?
I don't believe so.
Because that might be an urban myth that I heard.
I know that
out of nowhere. She was not even in the comic book.
Well, I think it was also more to have someone in the house who didn't know.
Oh.
Because then you could ramp up the drama a little bit, because Alfred knew and everybody knew. So there's really, with secret identity is one of the things that, it's funny how that whole thing is just gone now in comics. Well, they never use, oh my gosh, they might find out my secret identity. Nobody cares about that. Nobody uses it as a plot point. But especially in the 50s and 60s, the hero's secret identity getting out was the scariest possible thing. Batman used it, Superman used it all the goddamn time, and Spider-Man used it a lot. It was why it was shocking when the Fantastic Four didn't have secret identities. They'd never done a superhero like that. But now they, how many times has Tony Stark told everybody his secret identity? Oh, we want him to have it. Fuck it. Give it back. It was a big deal when Spider-Man revealed his secret identity, even though they knew they were going to put that genie back in the bottle.
Yeah.
But I think that's the last time somebody's secret identity ever was a plot point.
Oh, Alfred, I can't understand where these two are always running off to. Of course, I don't do it as well as Madge Blake did, but...
we have a request for stories, Joe.
We do?
Yes.
Brian
I don't think
I have any more Tales of the Shop.
Well, you may have a story about this. I honestly don't know. Brian Poindexter and I were talking about the comedian Mitch Hedberg, who was from St. Paul. And I saw him a number of times on his way up. But I was wondering first, did you ever get to see Mitch Hedberg live?
No, I didn't.
I saw him, well, first off, I went to comedy clubs in the 90s a lot. And I saw him go from, the opening act to the second act to the main act. but I was also there on nights when he was working out material to the point where he would just come out with a notebook and put it down on a book and have a glass, and he would read the jokes out of the notebook. And if it got a big laugh, he'd circle it, and if it didn't get a laugh at all, he'd go, well, that one's gone. Or he would tell a joke, and the laugh would be okay, and then he would rephrase it and say it again, and he'd go, oh, okay, that's how to say it. And I'd never seen a comedian work on their act in front of people. But the thing that blew me away, when I used to be a Dennis Miller fan, back before Dennis Miller became not funny, and he was coming to town for a concert, and it was at the Orpheum. His opening act was Mitch Hedberg. And Mitch Hedberg came out, and he killed. He had 30 minutes, and he brought his A game, and he killed. I'd never seen an opening act for a comedian do that well. Standing ovation, they wanted him to come out and do more, etc., etc., etc. And this was like right before his first album came out. Then Dennis Miller comes out and says, great, I got to follow the local genius. And he was off his game the whole night. And every so often he'd just go back, yeah, you're all tired from the opening act, aren't you? And you could tell that he was just rattled by it, that this local guy had taken his audience away from him. But did you go to any comedy clubs or stuff like that in the 90s when they were kind of big here in the Twin Cities?
Not too often. I know when I worked at the college radio station, it's Radio K now. Back then they used WMMR, which is funny because there was a WMMR in New York. They actually would give away tickets to the comedy club, and it was usually on an improv night. And a lot of times they weren't very good. Matter of fact, if it wasn't for the drinks, they probably weren't good at all. I think I forget the name of the car, but there was one guy, he comes up on stage and he's a really big guy, goes, see what I'm doing now? And he does a summer flip, lands on his back, flip, gets up. I'm a Suzuki, which I think was a minivan at the time that, as when it would take corners, would flip, and it had to be recalled. So that was marginally amusing. I think the best one I ever went to was a improv club with professionals, because what they did is they came up and somebody from the audience would announce something. And, of course, I yelled, spam! And, very good. And all of a sudden you see the three characters on the one woman just kind of sits on her knees and has one of those real smart grins and hand in her chin. Another guy just kind of opens his eyes real wide and starts rocking back and forth. Another guy puts his hands behind his back and just looks angry. And so the MC goes, okay, well, we've got our three people up that are all involved with spam. Let's see who we got here. And the woman says, well, I am such and such. I am an executive at Spam, and a lot of people don't realize is I helped create the artwork for the can. And so I'm very pleased to be here. The second guy was, I like Spam. We get to eat it every day. I like Spam. And apparently he was at one of the institutes somewhere, and he just let out to talk about Spam. The third guy, though, apparently he was a worker who fell in the vat and lost two of his arms. So then the audience participation started, and he comes up and he goes, the first person up goes, I happen to wonder how, to the third guy, how do you open a can of Spam? And the guy just glares at the audience guy. If looks could kill, this guy was dead. And the MC goes, well, I just happen to have a can of Spam right here. And of course, being improv, it's all, made up. He puts it in front of him. Third guy looks up. That's pretty funny. I suppose you tell Jerry kids jokes too. And the audience just lost it. I had my hand up and I didn't get picked, but what I was going to say is, had I been chosen, is I would say, sir, I believe I had some of the lot number that you fell into, and it was really, really extra good as far as Spam goes. I was wondering if you'd be donating any other body parts. But We didn't get it. I didn't get to raise my hand. I did. Too bad. A lost moment.
A lost moment. No, at the comic shop, you did get a lot of tickets for movies and stuff to give away because I snatched those up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were on the list to get freebie movies. And usually they were on a Tuesday when I couldn't go. Or on some night that I was stuck. And we were able to get to a few of them. I know I pulled did we see, was it Starship Troopers that we saw?
Yes.
Yes. That one we kind of like,
we're
definitely going to see that one. And there most of the times though I would let you take them, or I think Butch took a few, Dave, Jess, whoever. I sucked it up and stayed at the shop.
Well, somebody had to.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh well. I read a comic that we were supposed to review this week.
I know, and I was going to. I had it all ready. You know, I lost everything because I had to reboot my computer, and I sat down and I downloaded get ready to download the PFD that they send us, because they don't send us real comics, much as I love real comics. I love me real comics. But Cory was kind enough to send me the password that we could do, because, you know, this is stuff that the publishers send us in advance. Unfortunately, he forgot to send me the account login, so I'm going to have to sit this one out, folks. I am ashamed.
Well, both of us should be ashamed.
Yes.
And that means that I'm the one who talks about the comic Infinite 7, which is from Action Lab Studios.
Ooh, I bought stuff from them.
Well, of course you have, because they're the publisher of Ghoul Scouts.
I know.
And they're a smaller publisher, but
Zombie girl, or zombie chick, or whatever her name is. Gotta love zombies with big boobs.
Zombie Tramp, is that what you're talking about?
Hey. There's no need to be slut-shaming here.
Isn't that the name of the book, though?
You're correct. Again, I will be quiet.
All right, Infinite 7, there's a trade paperback coming out that collects the first 4 issues, and it's written by Dave Dwatch, who I've known through Comic Geek Speak and other places for quite a while, and drawn by Arturo Mesa, whose work I had not ever seen before. But his art reminds me a lot of the artist on Chew. It's that cartoony, over-exaggerated style, which I think really fits this book. Infinite 7 is, for centuries, the secret world government has employed the Infinite 7, the world's greatest assassins, to do their dirty work. The only way to become one of the members is to prove your worth by killing one of the members. But what happens when Anthony Zane, a teenage boy from the suburbs, does just that? He's a video game. They show him playing video games, but they talk about how he's a video game programmer. And what it is, it's supposedly in his house is something that the assassins need to take care of. He runs and gets the house gun and accidentally kills the assassin who had been sent for him, which means he's the new member of the team. There are things I really liked about this book. I liked the overall setup of the story. I liked the way that the character grew. But if you just read the first issue, you're not going to read it. It doesn't really escape the cliches until the second issue, because the first issue is set up. Oh, okay, he's a teenage boy, and he likes video games, and he's got a crush on a girl, and his parents aren't around. He's able to get the girl to come over and see him, and the assassins are pretty generic in a lot of ways, including one who pretty much might as well be Bruce Lee. And, a secret organization that's involved with the government, and reading the first issue, I was like, how many cliches are they going to throw at us? Are they just want to stack them up as high as they can to see if they'll fall? But by the second issue, it started to find its own voice. and also what's his name, Anthony Zane. He's our through character. He's the one introducing us to this world. And as the story goes on, there's some twists, there's some turns, there's some surprises. The art really helped a lot. It's cartoony and exaggerated, which helps with the fact that it's really unbelievably violent. If this were drawn realistically, it would have been way too violent and bloody for me to enjoy it. But as such, the way it's drawn, it really reads like kind of a pinball action thing. There are times when the cliches still pop up, like when he's put in their version of the danger room, and he pulls a Kobayashi Maru to get out of it. There was a sequence where the Bruce Lee character kills someone, and they literally used the sequence from Enter the Dragon, where Bruce Lee steps on the guy's head, and you just see his face as he uses his feet to break the guy's neck. Panel for panel, it almost looked like a tracing of it, and it threw me out of the story. I don't mind a homage, but when you do it that dead on, without a kind of a wink or a sense of humor to it, it throws me out of the story like, I saw that movie too, okay? The trade paperback ends on a cliffhanger, which can annoy some people. And if that sort of thing annoys you, just wait till the second one comes out. On the buy, borrow, or ignore, I would give this a buy. It's a small press book. I could tell they're going somewhere interesting. As the story goes along, it's pulling further and further away from the cliches that threaten to destroy the fun of the book. And there is a lot of fun. I wish they would have done a little more characterization for the other characters. They really just kind of feel like generic assassin people. But overall, for what you get for 4 issues, it's a lot of fun. Joe, did you read anything?
Oh, I read tons of stuff, but we'll get to that when we get to geeking.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
And did you finally make it through anything in the box? Anything
somewhat.
in previews that jumped out at you and said, "You must buy me"?
Well, if you're going to go that way. I could talk about that, but I don't know where my previews book went.
Okay, we'll do it next week.
Sounds good.
You know who does have their shit together and is ready to do this show?
Who's that?
These guys, our sponsors. That's right. Here at the Solitaire Rose Radio Network, we have ads, and our first sponsor is me. That's right, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. I have my first book out with Dangerous Dan Moore. It's the first 100 strips of our online web strip, Worldwide News, the story of the lowest rated cable news network. And you can get yourself a copy with commentary, with all sorts of extras, with signatures and everything. Just email Dan over at lordshadowflame@gmail.com. Our top sponsor, who's been with us since day one, is DreamHost. DreamHost.com. You need yourself a website, and DreamHost.com is the #1 web host in the whole known universe. Just head over to DreamHost.com, put in the code KRAYZ, KRAYZ, get $20 off your first year. How can you beat that? Our other sponsor is Graze, GRAZE.com. Healthy snacks for a healthy lifestyle. Just head over to Graze, put in the code CORYS3R5P. Your first and fifth box are free. You can get them weekly. You can get them bi-weekly. You can get them monthly. You just order a whole bunch of them. It's great stuff to keep you away from the vending machine at work. Now, if you would like to leave a comment for any of the podcasts that we do, we'd love those. Go ahead and email us at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com, or you can call 952-856-0519. Operators are standing by. Okay, it's just a place that will record your calls, but we'll play them on the air. We'll answer your questions. We love getting feedback. Tell us what you think. Ask a question. Suggest a topic. Be a guest. Send us your stuff. solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. If you would like to advertise on any of the Solitaire Rose radio shows, you can. Just email us at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com, subject advertising. Thanks. And after we finish with our sponsors, we talk about another podcast here on the Solitaire Rose Radio Network. Joe, you thought I was going to you, didn't you?
Well, I was hoping you'd have a few words for our viewers, like box, toaster, aluminum, maple syrup. No, I take that one back. I'm going to hold on to that one.
But, well, I have not been eating very healthy tonight, unless, of course, you call potato chips, a big old tall glass of maple syrup, and cookie batter healthy. But
I'm eating healthier. Instead of eating full-size ice cream sandwiches, I'm eating little miniature ones.
But instead of eating one, you eat 12.
No, 3.
Oh, okay. But we've got a show on this here radio network that I'm not part of.
I'm shocked. Shocked, I tell you. What?
And,
what,
you know,
explain,
I've got shows.
Explain.
It's these guys, our pals, Dave and Stephanie.
Traveling Across the West, a fortnightly retelling of Dave and Stephanie.
Wait, fortnightly?
That means every 2 weeks.
I know what it means. What if we wanted to do it more or less often than every 2 weeks?
Well, that wouldn't be holding down the fort, would it?
Oh, you're funny. Okay, how about frequently?
All right, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Scrabbling Across the West, a frequent retelling of Dave and Stephanie Kofel's adventures in traveling, making music, and playing Scrabble across the Western Hemisphere. It's all about the people, the places, and the game. Scrabbling Across the West. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I remember her. She doesn't eat her tater tots. I have them right here. Boy, is she going to be surprised next time I see her.
Everybody's surprised when they see you at conventions.
That's true. I tell
and
you,
after
I love this job more than I love taffy. And I'm a man who enjoys his taffy.
Well, and now we're to Joe's favorite part of the show. No, not the part of the show where I talk about how I play video games with my feet. It's, Joe, what's going on the eBays?
I am very, very embarrassed.
When has that ever stopped you before? I hear you take pictures with people you hate.
Yes, mostly when they come to my house to clean. No, I don't know if I should be proud, if I should apologize, or maybe I should just thank him. But Phil Cantonese bought something off of the old eBays. He sent me a note, and I'll just read it verbatim. Hi, Joe. My wife's still loving my giant-sized man thing I bought from you a while back. Still loving the podcast. Thanks. And he done by me a book we talked about earlier called Spooky, the Warren fanzine. Came out
yes.
in 2004, and this one had a Neil Adams interview. And, of course, as per my way of doing things, mine was the cheapest one on eBay. So thank you, Phil. Thank your wife, and I hope she enjoys my giant-sized man thing.
It's not yours anymore.
Well, yeah, but you didn't know it was detachable, did you?
Detachable penis.
Brick. Anyways, we...
oh, you remember that song.
I do. That's why I referenced it. But, again, we're not here to listen to you sing. We want to hear about my eBays. Actually, I've been putting... As things renew, I've been lowering the price on stuff. I'm really just wading through my collection fast now that I told you about getting everything ready for Fall Comic-Con, October 7th, 2017 at the Minnesota State Fairgrounds, Edumacation Building.
Well, you need to get edumacated.
I do. And, of course, my goal there is to blow out my vast accumulation of crap and to give you an idea how the progress is going. I've actually gone through about 4 boxes since we last podcast, so I'll give you an idea how a box goes. And we're talking comic boxes, these big ball breakers that an old fart like me is getting tired of carrying around. And so I go through a box. It's pretty loaded. I debag and board most of them because most of the $1 books are going to be just $1. But as I'm going through it, out of what fits in a box? About 250, 300 comics?
300, supposedly.
About 20 have a value above $1, and are actually probably worthwhile putting on the eBay. So I'll give you an example. I ran across 3 issues of Real Hep comics. This was one from Steel Dragon Press, which was a Minneapolis-based small press back in the 80s. And
that's known for a book we talked about recently, by the way.
Yes.
Captain Confederacy.
Yep. And Omaha the Cat Dancers, first issue was from them. And Real Hep was really neat because it was a smaller book with different talents. Some of the things we've heard, or names we've heard, like Greg Guler, Matt Friesel, Reed Waller, Rich Larson, and these are there's none on eBay. One guy has a number 2 up. It's the one that Reed Waller is in, and he's Chris from Omaha, the Cat Dancer. I put all 3 up just because, like I said, I've read them. The first issue is hilarious, though. It has one of my favorite strips that I can kind of describe. It's basically a bunch of skyscrapers sitting around playing on the Metrodome cards, and the one gets up with a big grunt. He goes, "Playing this hand without me, boys. I'm taking a break." Dum-de-dummy, thumb, thumb, walks through a neighborhood. Here's a good spot. And craps out a shopping mall. Name of the strip, How Shopping Malls Are Made. From Matt Friesel, who's better known for...
Cynical Man.
Yes. Another one I ran across that was kind of interesting. Moon Knight 57. This was Stephen Platt's stuff, and apparently it's actually held its value fairly well. Numerous copies on eBay for many bucks. Of course, mine will be the cheapest one up there within a few days of this here podcast. And I also ran across a book, and Corey, see if you remember it, Spider-Man the 1000.
I vaguely remember it.
Yeah, it's probably vaguely worth reading. It's actually it was the first run of Tangled Web.
Oh, that's right.
And I'll talk about that more when I get to geeking, because I read me a lot of Tangled Web. But as I was digging through, I ran across one, and then I ran across some that didn't have the shiny high print cover, and that was actually a recall comic. Apparently, when these came out, they made a mistake, and instead of on a glossy or hard paper with a better cardstock cover, it just came out on regular newsprint. And of course, when it first came out, I had no idea. I probably gave everybody 1,000 copy, whoever ordered Tangle's Web, and put it up. And then when the next replacement issues come, I just made sure everybody got their replacement one as free. And I probably took the ones off the shelf and probably forgot about them. Well, they're running about $50, $60 right now because apparently most people pulped them or threw them away or whatever. I'll have 3. I haven't decided on the price, but they'll be there. And, that's the type of stuff that is fun to run across, because most of the stuff I run across is, no, we'll talk about that when we get to freaking and geeking. In the meantime, if you want to see something, like I said, Phil sent me a quick note, said he loves the podcast, and you don't have to tell me you love the podcast. Just tell me you listen to it, and I tossed in a little bonus for Phil, and hopefully he likes it when he gets it. KRAYZ, or go to the Solitaire Rose websites. You can not only get a big list of everything that I'm selling, but if you link on to the store, you can get it in a more manageable format. The store, I haven't decided if I'm going to get rid of the store yet, because once I blow out my vast accumulation of crap, I might not need to pay, the $60 a month to have the store. I'll still have a lot of crap. It just won't be comics. Or maybe I'll keep it for one more year. I don't know.
Joe?
Yes?
I have an Ask the Joe.
Nah, well, you said it better last week.
What did I say last week?
About what does Joe know? I don't know.
Oh, what does Joe know?
Yeah, that would be
I like that. What does Joe know?
What does Joe know? A new segment is born. You see how innovative we are? Anything to amuse ourselves.
Yeah, it's at 300 episodes in, and we're still creating new stuff.
Yeah.
I read people online bitching about something eBay did. Have they raised the cost of doing business?
Probably. They tend to do that every so often. I mean, seriously, anytime I sell something, it's about, I think, anywhere from 20, higher, probably closer to 25% of everything goes either to eBay or to PayPal because they both take a cut out of it. And they had a thing where, I'm what's considered a top seller because I sell quite a lot. And I've had this honor before. It comes and goes. It's not that big a deal to me. But initially, it used to be 20% rebate on your final value fees if you keep certain, what'd you call them, metrics up.
Yeah.
No returns. You ship within 24 hours. And that was a tough one for me. You take returns up to 30 days. You take whatever. They basically carrot and stick you. They just dropped it to 10%. And I'm kind of like, well, that's barely the cost of doing anything. I mean, it's not worth doing it. But I still do. I still, I get it something, I mail it out. The fees may have gone up. And, because they always send user agreements. This is changing, that is changing. And I kind of glanced through them. But, eBay being a public company and being, they had a guy who, I don't think he's there anymore. What was the name of the chick who started it? Boy, is that misogynistic. Meg?
Joe's getting older, so he's starting to call them chicks and broads.
Yeah, that chick. No, never broads. Just them gals, them. I can't remember her name. She ran for a congressional seat in California after she left eBay.
Yeah, got her ass kicked.
She did.
Meg Whitman.
Yes. In my opinion, she ran eBay very well. The guy who came after was more of a retail guy, did not understand eBay, and consequently started doing policies. What he wanted to do was be Amazon, because Amazon was taken up, and the auction format, eBay had it by the throat. They were the auction house. If you wanted something fun, unique, crazy, eBay was the place to go. This guy wanted no part of that. He pissed away what he had in order to get what he could never have. He offered great terms to large places like Sears and other big companies to come in and sell their stuff. He totally ignored if they got bad feedback. A lot of these firms don't even sell on Sears anymore. And basically pissed away the small seller who either stopped selling, went to their own website, or went to places like there's a craft site. Etsy?
Yep, Etsy. A lot of people now are selling their stuff on Amazon.
Yep. Amazon is being more friendly to that. But what the point being is they pissed away the auction format. They made it so auctions aren't even fun anymore. They're not what people go for. And even I'm that way. I jump on the eBays, and when I'm on there, or even Amazon, if I see something I want it, I'm more willing to buy it now than I am to do an auction. In fact, most of the time the auctions, unless they're starting something at a ridiculous rock price bottom, I just tend to ignore it and just click, show me all the buy it nows. And eBay had this by the throat. They let it piss away. And they try to be Amazon. They're never going to be Amazon. Their biggest problem is you have to use PayPal. Yes, PayPal accepts, through PayPal you can use your MasterCard, Visa, whatever. Amazon doesn't have that problem. And that's probably, too, why when eBay's dealing with a bunch of sellers, they're well, if you want the 10%, you got to mail within 24 hours. Because eBay has that, too, with one-day selling. Hell, they're working on, they got that big fulfillment center down in Shakopee. I could see one day you ordering something and they fly that drone over to me and just drop it right on my doorstep.
Oh, yeah.
The other day, we were a little panicky because this no-color van pulled up, and the guy started looking around at all the different houses and went up to one of the houses, and I'm like, is this guy being cased? But when he opened the van, I saw that familiar Amazon symbol. They don't put it on the van probably. I don't know why. Maybe keep people from following and stealing stuff. But, I felt a little bit better when I figured out what it was, So, anyways, that's my rant on eBay. It doesn't surprise me that they've raised rates instead of growing naturally. And, again, I'm a money on the table guy. You got the small guys. Go ahead and bring in the big guys, but you don't have to hurt them. You don't have to hurt the small guys. That's what they did. They pissed away what they had. eBay's still probably the best place to go for comic books, in my opinion. There's other sites that are, atomicavenue.com, you could probably find things for less. But eBay just seems to be the one everybody goes to. I got this. It's going on eBay. Amazon's making inroads. So who knows? Maybe by this time next year, I won't be talking about what's selling on eBay. Joe, what's selling on the Amazons?
Oh, hey now.
I
like that segment better.
Like Amazons. And I haven't even seen Wonder Woman yet.
Well, it's time for my favorite part of the show. No, not where Joe and I pick out fuzzy toilet seat covers.
Ooh, I like that.
It's freaking and geeking. Joe, what are you freaking on?
Let's see. Shoulder's a little sore. I got my dumb TSA test next week. Let's see. I did read one comic that did not hold up under the how would you say?
Of Joe?
Of time.
Oh,
no,
time.
This is just, one of the things I've always talked about is when you read a comic, you're kind of like, what's going on right now? I think I talked about, was it Maximum Security? I mean, they were talking, Xavier's with a bunch of skulls, Cyclops is dead. You really don't know what's going on. Sometimes I'll be reading a book, like JLA's Grant Morrison run, which I'll talk about in Geeking, where, Wonder Woman's dead. Oh, the Queen's replacing her. That's right. I totally blanked on how she died, and you and I have gone around about the Queen. What was her name? Hippolyta?
Yep.
Hippopotamus? Taking her place. Well, this book, and see if you recall it, Mr. Strode, Spider-Man Team Up featuring the Avengers from September 1996, number 4. Now, normally you'd think Spider-Man and Team Up and Avengers would be 3 things you'd really want. But let's ask the Strode. Ask the Strode, what is the problem with Spider-Man during September 1996?
Clone War.
Yes, it is a clone. Corey, what is the problem with Iron Man?
Teen Tony.
Oh, yes, there's nothing like watching Teen Tony hit on Pepper Potts to the point where and at the time she was married to Happy Hogan. Oh, Stan, you and your alliterations. And of course, the Wasp had, she looked like a wasp. So, it was kind of interesting to read but it does not hold up well. It's like the Marvel DC crossover. As you're reading it, you're kind of like, what's going on? And the interesting thing is, it's kind of like an epilogue to an earlier Avengers story. Let's see if Corey remembers that. Corey, do you remember which Avenger story this refers to?
I actually was not reading that stuff with the whole Teen Tony crap.
And I think I picked this up because I was reading the I was reading Spider-Man. I picked up all the Spider-Man. No, this actually is kind of a reference to Avengers number 11, way back when the Avengers fought Spider-Man, and when the real Spider-Man got involved, it ends up finding out that the Spider-Man the Avengers were fighting was actually either a robot or an android or something. And this android apparently got reactivated. It started going around deleting the different Avengers. And I'm trying to find who did the artwork, because the art's actually, pretty good for the era. But, it's good, Marvel. Hide who does your stuff. What are we, in the 50s? But they do take a good premise. They talk about it. I believe that robot was sent by Kang. Maybe not. I don't know. I waded through this one. And they left, of course, the android body in South America, or wherever the hell they ended up defeating this thing. I think they was South America. But it just, again, if you didn't know that Spider-Man was a clone, and that the crossing, and that Thor was shirtless, and something was going on, and this and that and the other. This is going to the dollar bins, but you might want to just pass it up, and even for $1, it's overrated.
Spend your dollar on something else.
It's good reading. It's a thick book, And for the life of me, I don't know why I cannot find the creator credits. This is really weird. Oh, well, that's kind of what I was freaking on. Not everything is worth being reread, and this is a good example of why I am pairing my vast accumulation of crap. Cory, what are you freaking on? What's got you down in the dumps?
Well, I got my new Sinister Cinema catalog, and normally that is a freaking, but in the front of the catalog. And Joe, I've been with Sinister Cinema forever. They sell obscure and public domain movies. They used to sell them on VHS. Now they do DVDs. I used to buy them through the shop so I would get a discount. And then when the shop closed, they still give me the discount, and they still send the catalog to Hot Comics here in Chaska. So Hot Comics St. Paul still exists. We're Hot Comics St. Paul here in Chaska.
We always wanted a Hot Comics Chaska.
Why?
Well, then we wouldn't have to see you.
Well, I think all you had to do was ask me to clean your place. Then you could tell me to fuck off.
Well, you never cleaned my shop. Anyways.
Oh, yes, I did.
Just as a
oh, my God, did I clean that toilet.
No wonder this shop closed.
But the opening
I just
page.
wanted to mention the Spider-Man team-up I was talking about was written by George Perez and has art by Steve Gager, Derek Robinson, Dan Jurgens, and Brandon McKinney.
Oh, it sounds like that they had to get it done in a very short amount of time.
Well, yeah, because they jumped. It was a quarterly book, and it had gone from 52 pages to 68. But they didn't bump the price up until they got to like issue 6. So, but there's only 7 of these things. I've got one of them, and you know where it's going.
But the inside the front cover is a letter saying that this could be the last catalog, and he talks about how people aren't buying DVDs anymore. People are buying the public domain stuff because they could go onto YouTube and get it. It's public domain. It's free. They go out of their way to get good copies of this stuff. They have a lot of really obscure stuff. But he talks about how, one of the things that kept him alive in the mid-'90s was when he started selling B-Westerns. And he said that really the people who were buying the B-Westerns and the old the Westerns you haven't heard of that were just churned out, they've passed away. They're not buying stuff anymore. That the VHS he sells to a smaller and smaller clientele that are very dedicated because, they're older people and they just want more movies. But this could be the last catalog that he sends out, and he talks a little about the history. And every year they put out the drive-in double features, and I always buy all the drive-in double features. And it'll be a shame if they go away. But the gentleman who runs it is in his 60s. He says that he thanked us for the fact that he was able to quit his office job in about the early 90s just to watch and sell movies. And he said, basically, that's a pretty cool way to live. The second freaking I have is that while I did not work much at the group home this weekend, I spent a lot of time fixing shit. Joe, you have not been in my bedroom, thank God. But
well, I did deliver you drunk once.
Yes, but in my bedroom, on one of the walls,
we refused to stay.
Good. In the bedroom, one of the walls, I built bookshelves. Way back in the I would say 93, 94. And I built it the way you do when you're poor and a college student or, a single dad who's not got a lot of money. I was working at the group home in Bloomington, and it was a sleeping shift, but I had to wake up twice a night and check on the residents. And every time I would go in, I would stop at a gas station to get a soda, and the gas station closed at 10 and would open again at 6. And behind the gas station, they always had big stacks of metal milk crates. And I knew that they closed. So one night, it's like, I need to build me some bookshelves. By the way, the statute of limitations has passed on this. So I woke up at 3 in the morning, checked the clients, got in my car, drove up, got me enough milk crates to build shelves, and went back to the group home. See, I haven't always been a goody two-shoes. and use some 1x6s, and that has been the bookshelves in my bedroom for over 20 years. And over the last 6 months, it has started to lean.
And this, folks, was an episode of Carpentry with Cory. Another new segment.
But they have started to lean. And then Sunday, when I get home from the group home...
Oh, that's what you mean. I thought you meant when you said I lean in your bedroom. I never mind.
No,
I misunderstood.
And I had dropped my phone, so it's like, I got to go in and get my phone screen fixed. And I got to run all these errands. This is the one day I have off this week. And I'm going to be gone most of the time. So I go into the restroom to get ready for the day, and all of a sudden I hear thump, 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 thump,
thump, thump, thump, thump.
And I go and I look in the bedroom, and sure enough, books are starting to fall off the leaning shelves. I have to take them apart, put them back together. I can't have as much weight on top anymore. It had become top heavy. That's why it was leaning. But I've been stacking, here's some trade paperbacks I'll read again. Here's this. And, I had way too much shit on top of them that was causing them to lean.
On top of Cory's book stack, he puts his omnibus.
And I just want to tell you that books gather a lot of dust.
They fall off with dust.
But we're going to do a segment we haven't done in a while, Joe.
How to dust your books.
Hanging at the home.
Hanging at the home?
Hanging at the home.
Hang on. I'm going to sit back. I'm going to get me my old lemonade, and let's hear Cory. How's been hanging at the home?
Joe, how was your Tuesday night?
I was at work.
Okay, how was your Tuesday night around midnight?
I was home watching rain blow sideways.
And you know what that means if you're at the group home, right?
You have to push everybody into a small bathroom.
Yes. They actually had me do a sleeping shift because they would need an extra staff for the severe weather if it were to occur. Thankfully, it occurred at around midnight, so I was able to get a decent, I got some sleep. But I got an email today saying, hey, what happened with thus and such resident refusing to get out of bed? And I didn't know anything about it because what happened was it was myself and the Awake Overnight staff. And the women are down at one end, and there are only two of them because there are three normally, and one was on a home visit, so there were only two of them. The men, on the other hand, there were 5, 3 of which have wheelchairs, and one of which, if he's not in bed, he gets up, he eats, he then goes back to bed. He only says about 8 or 9 words, and he does not like not being in his bed. So I had to get people into their wheelchairs and bring them into the bathroom. And we have that shitty little radio that doesn't play anywhere, so I just took my phone using the TuneIn app to listen to WCCO, because we have to listen to WCCO when there's a storm. It's the law, I guess. I don't know. And the one resident who doesn't want to be up, I had to wake him up. Now, I was doing all of this by myself while she was supposedly taking care of the 2 women, which I found out today, only one of which got up. And she's able to, get herself dressed, do everything herself. So basically, the person at the other end just kind of got her up. She went in the bathroom and sat down, and the other one refused to get up, so she just went in the bathroom with the one resident. Me, I have 5. One of which is autistic and is in his wheelchair, and he finds that if he rocks back and forth in the wheelchair, it scrapes against the wall. Making the one resident who doesn't like being out of his bed start charging me to get past me to go back to bed. And when I would stop him and say, no, we need to stay in here, he would just smack me and go, no. So rather than the client rocking back and forth in the wheelchair, making a loud scraping noise and probably damaging the walls, I used my foot to keep the wheelchair from rocking back and forth. He would take his foot and step on my leg rapidly and with as much power as he could to get me to move my legs so that he could keep making the noise. While the other resident, if he hears the noise, would get up and run toward me, and I would have to block him from getting that. 30 minutes, Joe. 30 minutes. That was my life.
Well, Ric Flair could do that for 60 minutes.
No, he couldn't.
Iron Man.
No, Ric Flair would take 3 minutes and go, fuck this, I'm out of here. So when I got the email that said, what happened with blah, 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 not getting out of bed, all I could think is, I had that circus going on with me, and one of the clients said, yeah, I'm tired, I'm not getting out of bed. And you didn't do anything?
You, Cory, didn't you rush into the women's dorm and push them into a bathroom?
I had no idea what was going on, so I emailed and said, yeah, I was with the men down at their end. I got them all in there. I have no idea what happened at the other end, so I can't tell you why, blah, 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 blah. And she emailed back and said, you did all the men yourself? Wow. I should probably give you some pie.
Yes.
And now, Joe, what are you geeking on?
Well, you were talking earlier about what did I pull out of their previews box that I enjoyed. And some of it I talked about, and this is what I've read, The New Avengers by Brian Michael Bendis, the Complete Collection, Volume 4. This covers New Avengers from 2004, 38 through 54, a Secret Invasion run-through. And they do something in this book that I absolutely love, especially when they get to the crossovers and the team-ups. They take a page and they actually explain what's going on. And sometimes maybe it's just a back issue, maybe it's the inside introduction, like when you get to New Avengers 41, it says, Skrull ship crash landed in the Savage Land. When both Iron Man's public Mighty Avengers and Luke Cage's underground New Avengers arrive, Luke opens the door, only to be met with a gathering of Earth's heroes. And, of course, if you read Secret Invasions, you're going, oh, that's right. And, of course, if you read Secret Invasions, you never have to read New Avengers. But, of course, since back then I was a sucker for, a tie-in, and that actually helps because if you stop at the end of the previous issue, you see the big reveal that Spider-Woman is actually the Skrull Queen, which at the time didn't matter because we knew that if you read the regular series. The 41 starts out with a T-Rex charging the Avengers and the guys who got off the spaceship. And they do that a couple different times, at least until the Secret Wars is done. And I figure, if I'm going to drop $40 on a book, that's actually a brilliant idea because I'll know what's going on. I won't feel like I'm lost. And I do appreciate that. So I'm picking up the entire run because what I have left of the run, of course, will be going into the sale at the aforementioned FallCon, which will be October 7th, 2019 at the Minnesota State Fair Education Building. By the way, the advance tickets aren't on sale until September 1st, so you got some time. Another book that I got out of my box is Books of Magic, Book 1. This is a continuation with Harry Potter. Wait a minute. No. Timothy Hunter, 13-year-old boy. This is not Harry Potter. So, John Ray Niebuhr, Peter Gross, Gary Amaro, and Peter Schneegberg. It's what you get when you put an N in your name. And, of course, this from Book of Magic that Neil Gaiman wrote. And the beauty of this is I've never read this. This will probably answer the question. There's been a number of times where I say, you know what, this is money on the table. You're looking for your next big crossover with roots in previous stuff. You got Marvel. You got that Defenders run I talked about where the unmentionable guy camped out in Hulk's head and, he can't talk to his name, otherwise he takes over the world. Well, there's your crossover for next year. With Books of Magic, they had a big thing, or Book of Magic, I should say, they had a big thing where Timothy would end up being this super sorcerer that would control everything. There's even a scene, if I remember, where he's sitting here holding Superman by the throat, kind of contemplating him the way you and I would a hangnail, and the rest of the heroes on the ground being destroyed by the demons that Tim has summoned. I think they deal with that in Books of Magic. I don't know. I don't want to know. But if not, hey, 252, you got your guy. Bring him back. And the other book I read is one I've been sitting on for a while. Cory, have you read The Sandman Overture?
Yes.
Oh, wow, what a mind blow. Do not read it unless you've read the original Sandman. You will get much, much more out of it if you do. This, I mean, seriously, if we could open up Neil's head and see how it works, I mean, between Neil and the illustrations by J.S. Williams III and Dave Stewart, this is a mind trip book. I picked it up as the miniseries came out, but I set it aside, never read it. And it was really kind of dumb to read it. I think I was just too excited that there was a new Sandman because I bought the hardcover to go with all my other Sandman hardcovers. And it's beautiful. It's incredible to read. There's times where I stopped and I'd go back and reread it. There were times when something would happen and I would have to go back to see, did it happen the way I think it happened? It's just, I don't even want to say any more because I just want people to read it, enjoy it. Just a lot of fun. Cory, did you read back issue 96?
Which one was it?
Marvel Fanfare.
I have not read that one yet.
It just came out. So
yes, it's in the box.
This is probably the first time I have read page 1 to the last page, an entire issue of back issue without jumping around, skipping articles or whatever. I forgot how much Marvel Fanfare, how much fun that series was. Like most people, I thought, it's just an inventory story. It never as good as the first 4 issues. And, of course, I was wrong because now I look back and you realize it's a who's who of creators doing things they probably wouldn't normally do. Yeah, there were occasional inventory stories. We talked about the all-splash John Byrne page that Al rescued. And apparently in the story it sounds like it never got up to Jim Shooter. He wasn't even aware of it until Al asked him if he could publish it. But if you never have read the series, this is one I'm trying to get rid of stuff. Now I'm like, I got to get my Fanfare collection back together again. If anything, just to reread some of it. I know some of it was out in book form, and I know some of it, like they did have a 3-issue run of Weird World in it, the one you and I were talking about, and I think that was included in the Weird World complete collection, which I have somewhere downstairs. So did they have the black and white story too?
Yes, they had the whole thing. I believe the last part wasn't that drawn by the Marvel Fanfare stuff. Wasn't that drawn by Pat Broderick?
I think you're right. Yep, where is it?
Love me some Pat Broderick, man.
Was the first part Pat Broderick? First art by Plug, or was he out by then?
Plug wasn't doing comics anymore.
Okay.
He stopped doing comics in in the 70s.
Was that maybe? Well, his name's in the article somewhere, but
yeah, he might have had some inventory stuff floating around.
He did the Marvel premiere.
Yeah.
That had a World one-shot. And then, of course, you talked about the 3-issue Marvel special that was fabulous.
That I keep picking up. I now have like 4 different copies of it, so I can keep,
me too.
I discovered around. Not
only did I pick up a copy at the previous cons, but I have my original copies, and then I have it in the book form. So, and it's going to be dug up. It's going to be read. I've been talking about the JLA run that Grant Morrison did, and Mark Waid as well. I picked up the whole run from our good podcasting buddy, Adam Vermillion, at the Comic-Con. I have read up to issue 23. The art I had to get re-used to because it's very 90-ish style, but the stories are just fantastic. Rock of Ages was brilliant. You got Prometheus Unbound, the first appearance of him. Mark Waid steps in, does a really fun series with him and a character, Out of Luck? I forget who it was, but he also does a great one with Adam Strange. And then, of course, I've already talked about it, but I reread number 22 to 23 that had brought back Daniel from Sandman, his first appearance outside of the end of Sandman. Well, except for the previous Sandman Overture, which I won't say anything else about. And, of course, this leads into a one of the omnibubi that I have sitting behind me, which I think I'll probably have to read now, DC 1 Million.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
I missed out on that omnibus, but oh man, I love that story.
I know it's and this, of course, omnibus being everything. It's right next to something that now that I have it, I know I can no longer tease Cory about having it. I too have a copy of Avengers: The Crossing Omnibus.
You can tease me all you want. I know it's shit.
It must have been cheap.
I think mine was $20.
Yeah,
and every time I try to read it, it's like, damn it.
So,
how sad is it that here's this comic, and the way I talk about it is, damn it.
Damn it.
I remember at the time going, this may be the dumbest fucking idea I've ever heard. And then I read it, it's like, no, this is dumber than I thought.
From my vast accumulation of crap, I ran across a bunch of Spider-Man books that I have never read. And unlike most times where I look these up, these basically don't have a real value, so they will go to the aforementioned Fall Comic-Con sale that I hope to go to.
Well, I hope you're there, too, if you're selling your own shit.
I know. Crap. We can't say shit on the radio.
I can say shit. It's not the radio.
Somebody else.
It's the Solitaire Rose Radio Network. We have that. See that explicit tag that we got back during the dark days?
Why am I wearing pants if we're not only explicit but on the podcast? Excuse me, folks. I gotta whip this out. The first one on the pile, Cory. Did you ever read Spider-Man Sweet Charity?
Yes. I read all of the Spider-Man Twisted Web, and what was the other series that was like that?
I'm not sure.
Web Spinners.
Oh, yes. Yeah, this was a big-ass one-shot by Ron Zimmerman, pencils by Derek Robertson.
Whom I love.
And him
Ron
and
Zimmerman, not a big fan of, but love Derek's work. Love his work. This
was published 2002. And it's a big old one shot. I've never read it. I don't remember it, but it's kind of fun. The storyline basically is a bunch of people and heroes are being auctioned off for charity, and a character that I ran across previously that I don't know, and we know him as Al Craven, the son of Craven the Hunter, and he gets up and I will, as J. Jonah Jameson and Spider-Man are up being auctioned off by the Chin, Jay Leno. He says, Al, this is the Hunter, I'll bid $10,000 for them to go together on a camping trip, just the two of them. Usually you're bidding like to go to dinner with Thor or to a movie with Captain America. So somebody goes, can I bid for them to take the camping trip together, even if I don't go, so it'll just be the two of them? And Jay Leno says, not only can you, but I think